It's Wednesday, the moment you've all been waiting for. The latest, hot off the press, the Israel update. Hanoch Young here in Modi'in and Michael Clayton in beautiful, scenic, but a bit cold, Franklin, North Carolina. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, good morning. And there is a reason we don't give you caffeine.
It's funny. I have yet to have my first pure energy drink of the day.
Oh, wow.
Consider the time, I probably should get to it fairly soon.
Yeah,
But as you can tell, maybe I don't need it.
yeah, maybe not, maybe not. Well, all right. So you guys are joining many of us in the world on what we used to refer to back in 2019 of martial law, but since 2020 redefined words like you're not supposed to leave your house. That's now quarantine or lockdown. But here you are once again. What is this, like, three lockdowns and four elections?
The, exactly. It's funny you mention that. So we've got our elections coming up in March, and I've gotten a couple of notes from people saying, so what do you think is going to happen? And today's word of the day, I don't know any of our listeners ever watched Pee Wee Herman years ago, Pee Wee's secret word of the day. This
No,
word of the
I
day is
didn't. I didn't.
okay.
Let me go on record. Just I did not watch that, nor did I watch Barney. Okay.
Okay. Barney, all right, no dinosaur jokes. The secret word of the day for Israel's elections is going to be stalemate.
Oh,
Repeat after me, boys and girls, stalemate. Do not expect a clear-cut path to a new government. Hopefully, this is the beginning of the end for Netanyahu's reign. He's done good things in the past. However, the whole problem that we have now, and the only reason that we're going to new elections, is to keep him delaying his trial
hmm.
and keep him out of jail. It's really pathetic.
And speaking of
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
yeah, really. Speaking of jail, you guys have a new resident in Israel, Jonathan
And new
Pollard,
citizen, thank God.
who,
Baruch Hashem.
35 years in exile, in jail, and he goes to Israel and is now in lockdown. What's the irony of that one? But I don't really think I understand the whole Jonathan Pollard thing and why he became such a political hot potato. What's the Hanok Young version of this?
Okay. Pollard was in the United States Navy, and he became aware that the U.S. defense establishment, Secretary of Defense at the time was Caspar Weinberger,
Okay.
for those of you who can remember that far back.
Mm.
Um, he came across information that the U.S. had information on things that were potentially very dangerous to Israel. At the time, Iraq, Saddam Hussein, his buildup of weapons, of missiles, etc. And Weinberger, under his direction, they were intentionally not sharing that information with Israel. Pollard got the information to Israel and was subsequently caught and prosecuted by the United States government.
Okay.
However, never before in history has an agent, quote unquote, from a friendly foreign power been sentenced to so many years in prison. It's usually like, when someone's spying for the UK or for France or whatever it is, releasing secrets. And again, this is important. None of this was damaging to the security or defense of the United States of America. It all had to do with Israel.
Mm.
However, for reasons that have never been released, Caspar Weinberger had a personal vengeance and grudge against them. And 35 years later.
Wow.
So, it's really it's a sad thing when someone gets caught, in the political whirlwinds that, sometimes occur in this world.
Yeah.
Very sad.
And it did really become just a political thing. I mean, it was crazy to begin with from everything I'd gathered, but what you just said just, really makes sense. We didn't talk about it, which we normally don't. Didn't talk really a lot about where we're going today. So let me throw something at you. In the last
Don't know.
chapter, be scared. Um, in the last chapter of Bereshit, or what you guys would call Genesis, um, there is an interesting before these words, and I don't call them the blessings of Yaakov to the boys, because some of them are not really blessings; they're just kind of
No.
prophetic words. But it is a very interesting statement. It says, "And these are the things that shall come upon you in the last days." I need what's the Hebrew words there? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I've got my Tanakh right here. Give me a second.
In the Akarit Hayamim.
Acharei Yamim. Yeah, the end of days.
Okay, so that is literally translated. That is the end of days.
Right.
Okay, so from your study and those that you have studied under, what is your take on, here's this man over 3,000 years ago that has his boys gathered around him. They're in Mitzrayim, and he speaks these words, but he says specifically, "This is what's going to happen to you in the end of days." What was, I mean, just to think what was going through their mind at the moment when they heard that. Was it just something that they went, "What did he just say?" And then they start to hear the words. But give us your
Okay.
commentary on this.
My gut reaction to their reaction was probably something like, go on and chase yourself. It's kind of like he's an old man, he's muttering, whatever. Here it was, remember, they had gone to Egypt. Their brother, who they tried to sell into slavery, as opposed to kill, they were about to vote to kill him.
Yeah.
Is there. He's in a position of power. He's number 2 in the country. He is got them all set up. They had everything to look forward to. They had escaped the famine. They were in with the top family in Egypt. They were in like Flynn, as the old saying used to be. This is a reminder that there's a whole set of things that are potentially going to happen if we, okay, let me jump back a bit. Back in 1976, when I was but a mere lad.
Yeah, I graduated high school that year.
All right, I never should have mentioned the year, but my teacher of blessed memory, Rav Kahana, it was a JDL leadership program in Israel. And at the time, he shared with us, there was a rabbinic commentary on Hosea, in the words, Bita Achishena, in its time I will hurry it.
Mm-hmm.
So wait a second, that seems like a contradiction. What do you mean? If something is a set time, how are you going to hurry it?
Okay.
Like if we're not gonna record until 3 o'clock in the afternoon my time, okay. The expression is that is the Jewish understanding of the Geula Shlema, the complete redemption.
Mm-hmm.
The whole enchilada, peace on earth, the whole thing, everything. There is a set time for it. Hashem set a time in history that it would occur. However, if the children of Israel merited it, it would come sooner, with grandeur, it would just be amazing. Just like, just picture Yetziat Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt, with all the gold and riches, and everyone, skipping down, into the desert, ding dong, da, 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 da. Everyone's just like really pleased with themselves. The consensus here in Israel is that we've long since passed the point of being able to earn geula berachamim, redemption with mercy.
Okay.
So that's when the hummus hits the fan. And that's actually incredibly encouraging news, because we're in the middle of it right now. We've got so many of our friends, family, and listeners in America who are busy waiting for, the election results are going to be overturned tomorrow. It's going to be, Pennsylvania's going to do a recount, and then, well, wait a minute, Texas is suing, and the Supreme Court is, well, they didn't do it. And now, I reading, these, on Trump has this, and he's about to release that, and Rudy Giuliani is going to say this, and this is going to happen on January 6th, and this is going to happen. Yeah. Again, we go back to the wisdom of the little rascals. Go on and chase yourself. Know from where your salvation is coming. And it's not coming in the U.S. courts.
Yeah.
In the same way that here in Israel, every other day now, this is what's amazing. Parties are splitting up. People are defecting blue-white, which was the, which really did very well in the last 3 elections. They're going to be an afterthought. The Labor Party, which ran Israel for about 40 years, may not even get into the Knesset.
Wow.
The mayor of Tel Aviv, Ron Huldai, just started a new leftist party with the Minister of Justice, Avi Nissenkorn, who just left blue-white, called the Israelis. I mean, this is the name of their political party. And it's basically for everything leftist that you can imagine. It's bizarre. So when we have no definitive government yet again, it's not the Knesset that's going to provide salvation for us here. And it's kind of like, how many times do you need to be knocked on your head? Like, hello, is anybody in there? To know that, I got to tell you, I'm working on my blog for next week. And it's basically going to be about what happened to all those sparks of Kislev. Kislev and Hanukkah, we're Maccabee inspired. We're, the light shining forth, bring forth the light. Well, now it's Tevet, and it's kind of like, well, those donuts are long since stale.
Yeah.
And, the only people in the world, I'm sorry?
We put up the decorations, we put it in the boxes, and we'll bring this out next year again and have some latkes and,
right.
discuss it again. But where's the continuity between
exactly. Exactly.
So what I see here with this word to these boys is, this is about I want you to see some things in your lives that need to be fixed.
And if you don't, y'all got to understand what's going to be coming down the pike.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, did they make the same mistake as people still do today? I think Barry brought something out last week that, when it comes to the whole thing, and, we see in this Torah portion, the laying on the hands of Ephraim and Manasseh, we see the prophetic significance of the kingdoms, and, the house of Ephraim, the house of Yehuda, all of those things are coming through. We're getting the glimpses of what's going to happen in the future. But what Barry brought out that really struck me is when it comes to the reuniting of this family, instead of trying to fix ourselves, we've tried to fix each other. So
That's beautiful.
yeah,
That's be-
if I can, get this relationship with Hanok Young, and I can fix Hanok, then I'll be okay.
and the worst part about that is the focus isn't so much on fixing, but rather pointing out where each of us is deficient.
Mm-hmm. So
Instead of,
these boys are being given a list of things that this is what I see in you, and after my death, you need to work on these things. And so, is it possible that the words here of "this is what shall happen to you" in the Akarit Hayamin is speaking? He was not as much speaking to them, but speaking through them to a generation that still hasn't got that basic concept that there's still things going on in me that I need to fix. And maybe it would be better to work on, the person in the mirror than the person on the computer screen here.
but you know what? Social media, Facebook, for instance,
Mm.
doesn't allow you to look in the mirror, but it does allow you to look at everybody else.
Oh,
And it gives you the ultimate quote unquote power to criticize and critique whether you understand or not. Last week in our update, I happened to mention that after the tremendous unity of Yosef embracing his brothers, by the next generation, we had already, and other song lyrics, "Go Your Own Way." I mean, it's just, and it's funny that you mentioned about fixing yourself or trying to fix others. Just this morning while I was working out, I was listening to an old favorite song of mine by the Kinks called Superman. I'm so weak, I'm so thin, I'd like to fly, but I can't even swim. We've got these visions of grandeur. Everybody wants to be, I mean, for someone like yourself that's been in ministry for so many years, I don't know if it makes you crazy, but it makes me nuts that people, after attending a congregation for about 2 months, basically decide, thanks to YouTube, that they have all the credentials and the knowledge they need to go into ministry. And again, I come back to the wisdom of my father of blessed memory. That in this world, there are more horses' asses than horses.
yeah, your father had a couple of really good ones. Well, I
Absolutely.
mean, it's like what we see sometimes in Israel. The difference between a tourist and a tour guide is about 30 minutes. I mean, we've had people that have gone over there. This is their first time in Israel, or their first time. The last time they were there was 20 years ago, but they're the expert on everything,
Absolutely.
and basically know nothing. So we're still working on this dysfunctional family. And I saw something this week in the Torah portion. I taught on this actually of this cockamamie story that the boys come out with in the end. That after Yaakov dies, they go to Joseph and it's like, hey, by the way, Dad had a little conversation with us on the side. He didn't tell you about it probably, uh,
No.
because he didn't want to offend you or something. But here's what Daddy said, and so though in the last Torah portion, Yosef has I mean, he has all the power that he needs to do anything he wants with these boys. And he ends up being, it's kind of an interesting way to look at Yosef. He's a politician. He's a politician, and he's
Point.
like the vice president. He can do anything he wants all along the way. But then they come to the end after Yaakov's died. So though Yosef has proven himself in these years in Egypt, the boys still had a mistrust of him. Is that
Because
how much of that are we dealing with today?
what's interesting is their mistrust, the brothers' mistrust, came from their own insecurities for having been a collection of dirtbags.
Okay, you could say that a little plainer if you want to, but I'll kind of go with you there. So is this where we're still coming down to with the reuniting of Ephraim
Okay,
and Yehuda?
let
Is
me.
a lack of
I'll, I'll
trust?
I'll share with you what I've experienced over the years going to so many Ephraimite congregations. I have often seen, that's not always, but I have often seen those people who were most abused or felt abused or taken advantage of in their previous religious structures have recreated the same situation in their congregations and fellowships,
Mm.
except now they are the ones in charge.
Ah,
So what they're doing in effect is in their own mind, they're taking revenge. Instead of embracing each other, they're taking more of the sense of like, well, I am the senior grand poobah elder, and I'm the one that's in charge. I'm the one that goes to get online first in Oneg. I'm the one that needs to be, when I walk in the room, y'all need to stand up.
mhm, mm. Yeah, I read in I think it was Ecclesiastes. Yeah, Ecclesiastes. I'm spending the last few days of the year in Ecclesiastes. It's for some crazy reason, it's one of my favorite books. Because I think that me and Shlomo would have gotten along really well. Uh,
Oh, absolutely. Without
the,
a doubt.
yeah, the pointless, all is pointless kind of thing just really nails me. But in Ecclesiastes 10 and verse 7, it says, "I have seen servants riding horses, while princes walk on foot like slaves." This is all about attitude. But then there's another verse that is really appropriate for what you're saying. It's in chapter 5, verses 8 or 9, depending on your translation. "But the greatest advantage to the country is when the king makes himself a servant to the land."
Yeah.
This is, and I have next to this in scripture, this is called servant leadership. So what you're describing is a person that grows up in an abusive household and ends up creating an abusive household.
Without a doubt.
You
It,
know,
it's it, it's the battered wife syndrome,
yeah.
you know,
Instead of
and
getting over those things, and so this mistrust, and I don't think that we can move forward really um, very well without acknowledging the mistrust and where it's come from, and it's rightly, I mean, the fact that Ephraim does not trust Yehuda and vice versa. We've got some pretty good track record there of why we shouldn't. Okay, but I think
but
acknowledging that is the first step to healing it, is it not?
absolutely. And you and I have said this many, many times of the sense of getting to know someone and building a relationship. Not getting to know someone so you can get over on them and get your point across. Well, if Hanoch only saw these specific prophecies, let me underline them for him, and then take the Bible and hit him a few times on the side of his thick Jewish head, and maybe he'd finally get it. What actually disturbs me more is Ephraim savaging Ephraim, and Ephraim savaging their Christian relatives and neighbors.
You know, I saw it this week in a post, Alok, and I responded to someone, but I did it offline. I don't get into these things, but we have still a number of people out there that troll for division.
Absolutely.
You know, posting something that they know is divisive, a very divisive topic, but then wording it in such a way that it kind of seems a little righteous. Oh, I'm just trying to seek out the truth, but you know that in the end, what's really going to happen is it's going to be divisive. Uh, to me, there's no purpose for that.
Agreed.
And every time I see something like that, it reminds me of why I, spent so many years not on Facebook. Um, Life, once you open up that Facebook thing, and I know that a lot of people are going to MeWe and various places. It's if you had the problems, and this is not about Facebook, the company, but what you saw
Yeah,
that was wrong with Facebook will be the same as MeWe.
absolutely.
If you don't take action to fix yourself before you move over there. It's kind of like moving from house to house. I've Kathy and I have moved. I mean, we've lived all over the place, and there's this really disturbing thing that happens is that everywhere you move from, there's going to be two things that happen. Number one is you're going to have a larger U-Haul truck to move this time than the last time. Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's even after the garage sale. But and then that you make you say, I'll never do this again. I'll never get all this stuff again. Oh yes, you will.
Until the next time.
Until the next time. So that's number one rule of moving. The next one is this: that you start where you were, and you make all these great. When I get to this place, life is going to be different. We're going to do this, this, and this, and this. And then the first morning that you wake up in the new house or in the new apartment, you figure out that you pack something that you really should have left behind. And that's, again, the face in the mirror. Because moving this face from one location to another location doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
It's having to deal with it. And I think that's what, a lot of what we try to do on this program is bring out these things about let's deal with the issues. I posted, you're aware of this, got in conversation with someone in Israel. Nobody knows who it is, so they don't need to, they don't need to try to guess. But, I was trying to kind of open some dialogue about something. Well, there was an issue they refused to talk about. And though I wasn't actually talking about that issue, but because I was making them uncomfortable, they went to that issue and basically shut down the whole conversation.
Yeah. One rule that everyone should follow when posting on social media is, will this post add more light in the world or merely just heat and fire? And there are those who really they do want to agitate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, remember the show The Wild Wild West, Robert Conrad? I know I'm so much older than you, Mike, that's where the memories come from. But he had a commercial.
Actually, no, I was watching it last night.
Anyway, he had a commercial where he put a battery on his shoulder. Go ahead, knock it off. I dare you. That's what many of the posts in social media are about.
Hmm.
It's my way or the highway, because I'm right. It's almost like, I when I was in high school, I worked in the local pharmacy, cashier, stock, delivery, that kind of thing. The pharmacist was a wackadoodle, and he had a sign, God's honest truth. It's hard to be humble when you're as great as I am. And I got to tell you, I've met so many people over the years who should be wearing that sign or should have it printed on a t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this thing of opening dialogue, is there, you know, you cannot move forward um, until you come to the place. It's like in a marriage. Um, as long as there's an issue on the table that you refuse to talk about, then how can you possibly move forward?
No,
And it's like, with you have to be able to discuss all issues,
right.
all of our differences. But as you were just saying, what about discussing our differences with the attitude of learning something through our differences instead of proving something through our differences? And this is where this chapter of scripture is so meaningful to me, is that all these boys are different, and they
Yeah,
needed to learn how to celebrate their differences, because when they came together as when all of them came together as one, they produced a family, and they weren't just a bunch of clones. If you've
yeah,
noticed, with as you have children, you don't clone them. You don't have, like the first child and then clone and see how many more you want. No, you have
no,
different children, and they're all different, and
y-
that's a good
that's
thing.
very true. It's very true.
Yeah, it's so okay, maybe a little bit of wisdom there. So, uh, parting words from Modi'in Israel, looking forward to the ball drop in New York, the keg drop in Asheville, or what do you guys do? Like drop matzo balls or something, or falafels? Or...
It's actually, except in Tel Aviv, New Year's Eve isn't a thing here.
Yeah, well, that's your left coast.
It's yeah, Tel Aviv, which is our second largest city. Jerusalem is by far the largest, about 850,000. Tel Aviv is about 260,000. That's the difference in size. But Tel Aviv has the foreign workers. It has the more leftist, more liberal, whatever you want to call it, more international. But it isn't a thing. January 1st, New Year's Day isn't a thing either.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. The world here is very different.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I remember in New York, it used to be the big thing of, what are you gonna? I never went to Times Square on New Year's Eve.
Mm.
The idea of being, kind of barricaded in a section when it's brutally cold, to stand there for hours, it
Yeah.
didn't appeal to
Well, so a non-event. Well, I've got a tradition that I've been doing for a number of years on New Year's, is I go to bed, and
a good idea.
usually the next morning my computer tells me that yeah, it's another month. So, but maybe Hanok, you could start a new tradition there in Modi'in. I mean, you're always on the cutting edge of things. Is
Obviously,
you could maybe stand out there, and off your balcony in Modi'in, you could drop a falafel ball.
or two for the same price.
That's true.
There, across the world, I've never seen a time in my lifetime where people are more anxious for a particular year to end.
Yeah.
I just wish that we knew that it would all be better on January 1st.
Yeah. But what if 2020 was just a preparation for 2021?
Well, what we are preparing for, we should tell people, is our next Connect to Israel tour, which will be in the fall, the end of October through the first. So I guess that's 30 days has September, April. Okay, so that would be the 31st of October, flying through the 11th of November.
Yeah. And I need to update those dates on online. If people would like to go to connecttoisrael.org, they can get information on the trip. And God willing, this one will happen.
Show enough.
Well, Hanok, though it's a non-event for you, Happy New Year.
Hey, listen, again, we're looking forward to a better year. And again, as I repeat to people, I will take good wishes anytime about anything.
There you go.
So happy Wednesday. Enjoy. And we'll see you all next week.
You got it.
Take care. Bye bye now.